Before we get to the wiring harness, I'm gonna do the final assembly on this trim bezel. Slide my air conditioner brackets into place. Replace the factory screw into the new kit. Now if you lost the factory screws or misplaced them, it does come with 2 screws for up here. And then it has these funky style clips just like the factory. The way they go on is you have to kind of push and turn and it will thread onto the plastic. It is not the easiest thing to do. Once you get it started, you can switch to some form of plier. That way you don't just totally shred your fingers. In the box, we have the backup camera retention, which we'll not be using, the antenna adapter. I'll hand this off to Fernando while he's getting the mic in. He can plug that in. The touchscreen up top has the ability to have the rear view screen act as a backup camera in case you're doing, let's say, a regular radio down below, singled in, or something that doesn't have a touchscreen. You can loop the backup camera into the top screen and use that to retain the factory backup camera. The first big harness here is the main wiring harness. On the end, you'll find the 2 harnesses that plugged into the factory radio. On the other end, you'll find the input wiring, and then the harness to go off to the brain, a secondary harness to attach to the brain with more wiring on it, and some form of harness to go between 2, as well as it has a form of T-harness here on the end. Kenwood radio harness for the steering wheel control. Now we have to figure out what each one of these harnesses is for, which is the instructions, as well as on the back of the dash kit, you'll notice there's a bunch of inputs here, as well as a small one down here in the bottom that has a 6-pin plug that matches up to our 6-pin plug with the T-harness. This was the harness that was plugged into the actual dash kit. That fits into the top. On the side of the kit, there are some push tabs to attach the wire to here. That will allow us to run our wire and be out of the way. Main harness, secondary harness. This top square one here is for that camera. On page 7, it gives us a breakout of every one of these. E, which is the one here that is open, will not be used. And then F is our updater for USB if the kit needs an update. Knowing where they all go, I could set this back aside. These 2 adapters here, one is for rear seat entertainment, one is for non-synced systems. We don't have either one of these. You can either remove them or just tuck them aside. The 1/8 inch located here is for the steering wheel controls. This adapter is going to plug into that here. There's a brown and a brown white. The brown white will not be used. We can cap that off, and the brown is going to get connected to the Kenwood blue yellow. If you have a JVC, it will be the same. Everything else that just uses the standard 1/8 inch jack will plug into the steering wheel control input on the back of the radio. On page 5 of the instruction manuals, we'll talk about the main power harness here and the secondary harness here. This has 3 what look like standard power wires coming off it. Your yellow constant 12 volts, your red accessory, and your black ground. It also has a purple, purple black, green, green black, which are typically rear speaker wires, a solid blue. The blue wire will not be used at this time. Normally blue is some form of an amplified antenna. However, in this case, it is not. Now, for some reason, the red wire is shorter than all the other wires. I don't know why that is, but we may lengthen it as needed. Looking at the second harness, it has a bunch of wires on it as well. The first one being another red wire. According to the instructions, both red wires need to be connected. There's a blue-white wire located in here, which is going to connect to the blue-white wire of our Kenwood. It is the turn-on for the amplifier. Whether it has it or not, always connect the wire. Orange-white is illumination, which will match up to our Kenwood's orange-white. Next is a brown wire. This is the sync mute wire. If your radio has a brown cell phone mute on it, connect it. If not, leave it disconnected. There's a white, a white black, a gray, and a gray black. Those are going to be our front speaker inputs. And then this also has the rear speakers on it as well. The green, green, black, purple, purple, black, which will not be used. Those can be taped off. There's a small bundle of wires over here that are grouped together. These are your nav wires. There is a blue pink, which is VSS or speed pulse. There's a green purple, which is our reverse trigger. And there is a light green, which is our emergency brake. Those are going to be different than the Kenwood. Kenwood uses standard purple white for reverse. So you'll have to connect the green purple to the purple white for reverse trigger. If you're using a radio with VSS, typically on the aftermarket radio side it is pink. That'll hook up to your blue pink. Then light green is always emergency brake. Connect these two together. My harness is all set and ready to go. I did untape some of the factory harness just to make it a little bit easier and make a little bit more sense to me. I added in a loop to go from the one accessory to the other accessory, and I also put out a ground and a accessory and remote in case I decide to ever add a backup camera or another amplifier. This is done though. We can get it into the car. Take the instructions with you because there is actually a learning process that is discussed in here. Start on page 7. At the top here it's going to tell you to read everything first because this is a timed sequence. The first step is to plug into port B. On the harness we just completed, plug that in. Take the end of the harness that plugs in where the factory radio was unplugged, plug those two plugs in. On the end of that is plug A. Don't plug A in yet. This is going to be the last one we plug in before programming. If you retained the backup camera, plug that into port C. The little dash kit harness that we have, plug that in to the bottom, the one harness that was plugged into the car, and then plug it into the kit. Nothing gets plugged into E or F. Plug in your radio. At this point, the only thing that shouldn't be plugged in is this. That is going to take us to page 8, programming. Refer to step 2 for the installation. Place the vehicle ignition to the on position. Program the kit. Once the programming display loads up, select the type of vehicle. In this case, it's a Ford Explorer 2011 to 15. Wait until the radio comes on. The touchscreen display shows SWC configured. Means the steering wheel is done. This process might take up to 3 minutes. At this point, the kit is programmed. Test all your features. So I will give Fernando the key. Plugging in, hold on. Plugging in harness A, turn the car on. And it immediately lights up and asks us the car. Scroll down. Ford Explorer with the small screen. Let it do its thing. And there we get it. Steering wheel configured. Select OK. And if you notice at this point, the radio is not in the dash. We're doing this all with it sitting on our laps. Now we can test it. Air conditioner shuts off. Air conditioner turns on. Rear is off. Home. Once you've tested everything on the air conditioner, you can move on to the radio. Turn off the demos. Turn off your camera if you don't have one. Turn it on if you do. Set up your key color, view angle, and most importantly, set up your clock. We have sound. Volume up is working. Volume down is working. And we want to check our CarPlay to make sure that works. What's the weather like today?
It's currently partly cloudy.
We wanted our phone buttons to work. To do that, unplug the power to the sync module that was located up here in the top that we showed you at the beginning when we grabbed our USB. By unplugging that, that told the kit when it programmed that sync was not in this car and relinquished over those buttons that are on the steering wheel to our aftermarket radio. Really cool. That means all of this works. We're gonna pull it apart again, get it all locked into place. And since we're not using that sync feature, we want to gain that dash room back. It's 2 7s, comes right out. When tucking the radio into the dash, take your time, go slow. It is gonna take a minute. Once it's done though, do a second test before you finish snapping all the radio back in. You wanna make sure that nothing became unplugged. Let's take a closer look at this dash kit. Dash kit has a very factory look. It fits in nice. The spacing around the radio is good. I like it. And that is how you put a radio on your Ford Explorer when it has that little tiny silly screen. Not bad.
Pretty good.
I like it. Thank you guys. Fernando, if you please.
On to the next one, guys.
You guys have a great night as always. We'll see you later next time.
Bye.
Bye.